What's going on, everyone? So the other day I put out a video on the top 10 musket cards before set 3 releases. These are cards that are looking to get a lot better for when set 3 actually releases and you have all the different mechanics in there. These are cards that aren't necessarily like the absolute best right now, and so they are expected to rise if you don't pick them up now. And you all enjoyed that video a lot, so we're here again with 7 more cards to check out and cards that you might want to consider picking up before set 3 releases. Before we get started, quick announcements. I have a TCG pillar link in the description down below. Be sure to use it for any of your cards in Star Wars Unlimited. And also a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. We've been chatting, playing games, and of course, suggesting some videos for me to record. Let's dive into some 7 cards that you want to pick up before set 3. For our first one, we've got ourselves the Client. Now, this is a card that has been increasingly popular as some more vigilance, villainy, controlling decks have popped up. Bosk Blue, of course, Kira Green tends to play a copy or two. The other various forms of villainy, vigilance, control tends to play a few copies or 2 to 3 copies. This card is just incredibly good at keeping you alive. 2/5 shielded, already a good stat line. The thing with set 3 is that we're gonna have a lot of random units on the battlefield that are going to most likely die extremely easily. Being able to claim a bounty is going to be a lot easier. Putting this on like a battle droid token or a clone trooper token and then killing that clone trooper token is most likely going to be a very trivial process. I'm sure tokens are going to be dying left and right. Well, that's the whole story of Clone Wars, right? And so claiming multiple bounties with this is pretty likely. In fact, already in set 1 and set 2, claiming multiple bounties with this is pretty likely, but it probably will be even more likely with set 3 with how many additional bodies, little weaker bodies running around like 2/1s, 2/2s, 1/1s, claiming a bunch of bounties, healing up, and kind of preventing the going wide strategy. I think the Client is going to get a lot better. And heck, even if you're just considering the 2/5 shielded aspect of this for 3 resources, I mean, it trades with, or kills rather, a clone trooper token and still has 2/5 worth of stats behind because it's shielded. So even if you weren't even claiming any bounties, just constantly being able to attack with this and not really take too much damage on it, the amount of toughness that it has for 3 resources actually ends up benefiting a ton. Not to mention it's shielded, and the third point of power actually doesn't even matter for a lot of the units coming out in set 3. So it's kind of just perfectly statted, has a nice ability, really well situated for set 3. Next one up is Mystic Reflection. Now, this is a card that I am, well, a pretty big hater of at the current moment for set 1 and set 2. The chance of you getting a force unit on the battlefield for this is not extremely likely. If you have a deck built around it, it can happen. And giving -2/-2 doesn't usually impact the game a whole lot. Now, come set 3, this will change, okay? You will have a lot more force units to synergize with this. All the various Jedis that are coming down, 3 resources, 4 resources, heck, 2 resources even, you are going to be able to play this for 1 resource and give something -2/-2 a lot easier. And in a lot of cases, there's going to be some sort of token that you're going to be able to kill with this. Now, it's not ideal to use on a token, right? Because this token will probably be attached to something else. You know, Battle Droid Escort creating a Battle Droid token. So using this on a Battle Droid token isn't really all that valuable. But there's a lot of situations where you'll be able to shrink down something bigger and finish it off with your force units. Or if there is no other better opportunity, you're going to be able to just use this on a cheap token. And because it's only 1 resource, it isn't that big of a downside, especially since this card is most likely going to be going into the mid-range / more controlling heroism decks, maybe backed up by some force units, more of like a soft control type Kira, but instead of villainy, you're playing heroism is what I imagine. And with those decks, you really don't want to be getting overrun, and Mystic Reflection is a perfect answer to some of those decks that are looking to go wide and pressure your life total. If you're able to pay 1 for this and get -2/-2 out of it, it is pretty strong. It's not quite Make an Opening, because Make an Opening does heal you too. And in some cases, it'll actually just be better than Make an Opening because of the 1 resource compared to the 3 resource cost. So pretty strong. It's also going to be a really nice answer to Lurking TIE Phantom, which I'm still pretty certain it'll be around for especially the soft control and hard control matchups. But Mystic Reflection, more force units means that this card is most likely going to get better. Not to mention, it looks like Heroism Vigilance is going to get a lot of tools this next set to control, which makes me more hopeful for Mystic Reflection here. And this one happens to be a rare, which doesn't happen to be the case for all the cards on the list today. Next one up is one that I've been waiting for because he is actually sweet, assuming you can get all the value from him. And that's General Tagge. 2 resource ground unit, command villainy, 2/2. Pretty straightforward. But the trick is when you play him, you really want to get the full 3 experience tokens. And if you are able to get the 3 experience tokens, this card is pretty solid. So far, what we've seen from the set 1 and set 2 is that it's really difficult to get more than like 2 units on the battlefield at any given time. And even if you do have 2 units on the battlefield that are troopers, you are probably already into like turn 5 and turn 6, where the game is probably close to over at that point. With set 3, mind you, this is a villainy card, but there are a lot of cards that are able to create clone trooper tokens from just non-aspect or non-villainy aspect cards. So this can put experience tokens on battle droid tokens, on clone trooper tokens, which are all created en masse, as well as a bunch of just cards that are standalone from the set itself. All the clones like Jesse and Rex and all the like the random rocket droids and most of them are troopers. So the cards that you're playing, the tokens that you're playing are all troopers. And because it's a go wide format, or at least set 3 is planning on being more go wide, I could see a deck that is really built around going wide, pumping up these troopers, and then getting in for a ton of damage. And General Tagge fits perfectly in that style. We've seen how powerful Medal Ceremony can be already in just giving 1 to 2 experience tokens early on into the game. But this comes down, will give potentially 1, 2, or 3 trooper experience tokens, since you don't need to attack. And that's really important. One of the things with Medal Ceremony that prevents it from getting that 3rd experience token oftentimes is that you do need to attack. But you could play a unit that creates another unit, then play General Tagge right after, give everything experience tokens, and you have a 2/2 body with General Tagge left over, which is really, really quite impactful. Off chance, official, the tag matters for General Tagge. Not quite sure that'll matter, but even just getting some experience tokens on your clone trooper tokens or battle droid tokens, I could see being extremely, extremely valuable. Next card is a card that I honestly did not expect to see at all in set 2, but it does have a little bit of play here in some of the like soft control / ramp decks. Particularly Palpatine double green and Kira green are the ones that I've seen it come from the sideboard. Choose sides here, 7 cost event in command. You basically just get to swap a unit with your opponent, assuming it's a non-leader. This card ended up being pretty strong in certain matchups. I've played against, as I said, Palpatine and Kira, where they have some sort of random cheap unit like a Crumb or a Lauren or a Hylobon Enforcer or whatever it is, and they swap with whatever your 7 resource play or 6 resource play it is. This card has been particularly good against Han Blue. If you play, I don't know, like a Luke or whatever it is, a turn early, and they get down to choose sides after that. Even if you don't get the when played trigger, just getting that body and replacing it with something weaker is super powerful. And with set 3, I could see this being pretty powerful to swap some sort of clone trooper token or battle droid token that your opponent doesn't necessarily care about later on in the game with an opponent's unit. It's much more likely to have some sort of garbage laying around on your board in set 3 than it is set 2. Remember, in set 2, you basically always have to give them something reasonable, like in some cases it's a Crumb, in some cases it's a Ularn or whatever, but at least that's something, right? In set 3, you give them a 1/1 with no abilities, no stats, just a battle droid token, and you take their best units. So I think this is going to be a lot more consistent than it is from set 2, and I can expect it being a very nice sideboard card at least come set 3. Next one's probably a little bit strange to see, but let me explain. Just take a second. Let me explain, okay? Rule with respect, 4 cost events Command Heroism. A friendly unit captures each enemy non-leader unit that attacked your base this phase. I'm not saying this is going to be a main deck staple, but this is currently a card that is not played anywhere. I think this could really be a powerful sideboard option in any sort of token matchup. Reason being is, right now, the only thing that happens with capture is you take a unit, someone kills your friendly units, and then they get their unit back, and it doesn't really do all that much. And Rule with Respect, even though you can capture a ton of units, it isn't really all that valuable. However, if you're against some sort of go wide aggro deck that they're hitting your base, pumping up their units, and you play Rule with Respect at the end of the turn after maybe taking some actions or doing whatever, you are able to capture all of those tokens and they do not come back. According to the rules right now, any sort of token that is out of play just kind of disappears. It doesn't come back. Okay. Now, we've only had shields and upgrade tokens really to deal with, but let's say you capture a unit, it gets rid of all their experience tokens and they don't come back. I had to go ahead and double check on the rules, but as far as I understand, when I was reading the rules, these will also apply to Clone Trooper and Battle Droid tokens, and it's very similar in Magic. If you were to return something to an opponent's hand and it was a token, or if you were to, do anything to the token, get it out of play, it will not come back. And with capture, it still should be that way as well. So if your opponent's got a nice wide board of Battle Droid tokens, they got like 4 or 5, they attack, boom, you get to capture all those Battle Droid tokens and they don't come back. And you get to capture other units, not just the tokens. So this could potentially be a one-sided board wipe against all the Clone Troopers or Battle Droid tokens or whatever that's attacking your base. This could be potentially pretty powerful if there's some sort of go wide aggro, go wide token themed deck. This is one of those legendaries that kind of is under the radar right now, as well. I guess I shouldn't say under the radar because it's just bad. Right? I'm looking it up right now, and I think this card, it is currently sitting at $1.50, and that is an extremely cheap legendary, right? This is a legendary card. If this is a sideboard card at any point, and it's a pretty strong one, this is going to raise in value very quickly because it's so rare to acquire. I say that, but then I know some people are like, well, I get like 20 of these in my box. Just trust me on this one. If you want to speculate a little bit with me, I think this will be a nice sideboard card against those token matchups. Next card is a card that has kind of fallen off the radar a little bit with set 2, but was a pretty big set 1 staple with like Iden Green, heck, even Iden Double Blue, and all the kind of soft control decks out there that were looking to curve out. Krennic Green, you saw it a lot in, and that is Death Trooper. 3 cost ground unit, 3 cost ground unit in Vigilance Villainy, 3/3, gets to deal 2 damage to a friendly ground unit and 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. Now, nowadays, this card just kind of doesn't do all that much. It doesn't really kill anything from your opponent's side of the battlefield when it comes down. It can help finish things off. It's still decent in like Kira Green because you can grab a Vader and get Death Trooper off of it. And then, you get to finish off that unit with Death Trooper that you hit with Vader and all that type of stuff. And it's just nice to curve into, especially if you have a shield token, you get to hit the shield token, etc., etc., etc. With set 3, this will, assuming tokens are viable, but also because of the way the units are structured, is very likely to have a target that it's going to kill, and then it's going to trade off with another portion of a unit. Or, and in this case is also true, you might be able to target your own Battle Droid token and kill off a token from your opponent if you want to deal the damage a little bit differently than just putting it on the Death Trooper itself. But killing off a Clone Trooper token, like let's say they play a Batch Brothers and you play a Death Trooper, we're able to immediately kill off their 2/2 token and then kill off their other thing. And that's going to be potentially pretty relevant, especially if you're a deck that wants to be a little bit more slow paced, or maybe you're not relying on the go wide strategy, but your opponent is. Anytime you're able to disrupt your opponent and kill something while also leaving a unit behind to deal with another threat is really impactful, especially for decks that are going to be going for 2-for-1s. They're going to be playing a unit that generates something else or generates other value, and one card is able to deal with 2 bodies. Ends up being pretty powerful, and I can see Death Trooper being a pretty big staple if you're looking to go that soft control route. So Death Trooper, I think it'll be a little bit of a resurgence in the meta here come set 3. And the last card on our list is another Trooper synergy card, and that is Precision Fire. 1 cost event, attack with a unit, it gains Saboteur for this attack. If it's a Trooper, it also gets +2/+0. So we've all seen how immensely powerful Surprise Strike has been. It's basically a staple in any sort of cunning aggro deck. Han double yellow, Boba double yellow, Sabine yellow, etc., etc., etc. All those decks are running the full 3 of, generally speaking, of Surprise Strike. Now, this doesn't quite hit for as much as Surprise Strike, as it's 1 power less, which is relevant. However, as a trade-off, you're getting 1 resource cost reduction, and you get Saboteur, which can be relevant, especially against any sort of deck that's running shields or just trying to get past Sentinels, which could be a potentially powerful strategy come set 3. The downside to this is getting that Trooper, having a Trooper on the battlefield at all times in order to get that +2/+0. Because with Surprise Strike, you do not need any sort of prerequisite to get that +3/+0, right? You just need a unit. However, with set 3, as I said earlier with General Tagge, all your tokens are going to be Troopers. A lot of the Separatist units and clone units are Troopers. Since they're clones, they are clone Troopers. It's their droids. They're oftentimes battle droids, and then they have the Trooper tag. You are very consistently going to be able to get this +2/+0. And if, let's say, this is as consistent as Surprise Strike in terms of getting that +2/+0, I could see this being an absolute staple for any sort of aggression aggro deck that's looking to pump up and get in some damage. Again, 1 cost to get in +2/+0 worth of damage and that attack, while also having the upside of getting Saboteur, if that's relevant, is going to be extremely strong. It's all a matter of, are we going to be able to consistently have a Trooper? And is it going to be that we have some sort of aggression-based deck that has those Troopers to put Precision Fire in? If those 2 conditions are satisfied, which with set 3 it looks to be, then I could see Precision Fire being an absolute staple in those aggro decks. But that's going to wrap up our top 7 list, or I guess 7 more, so top 17 list now of cards that I think are going to get a lot better for set 3, some of which are going to be very expensive. If they do end up being very powerful, choose size, rule with respect in particular. Some of them are just uncommon, so you can pick them up for nice and cheap now. Some uncommons end up being like $1, $1.50. You can pick them up now and they're like 10, 15 cents, which can be pretty nice, which I think is 100% worth speculating on if you don't have them already. Regardless, these are just cards. If you're interested, that might just get better. And next time you build your deck, you might want to be considering these cards, these 17 cards that I've mentioned so far, in your next deck, and maybe some ways to build around. I think, in my opinion, General Tagge looks to be one of the stronger options here on this list, and I'm really excited to see what we can do with like a go wide, get a bunch of units, pump them all up, get in for damage, and see what you can do. I know Villainy all about sacrificing your low-cost units, but I'm interested in doing kind of the Clone Trooper side of things with the Villainy side of things, if that makes sense. Doing the coordinate things with the Villainy cards. Getting a bunch of units out, attacking, getting in some damage, pumping up the map, or whatever it is. Just aggroing, but rush them down with a wide strategy. I think that could be pretty exciting. Of course, choose sides looks awesome. Rule with respect, guys. I'm excited to see if we're ever going to see any play out of this card. If there is one time to play it, I think it's going to be set 3, and I can see this being a one-sided board wipe. That would be absolutely sweet to see. Of course, Death Trooper, Precision Fire, Client, all these cards. Mystic Reflection do have some play nowadays, but I think they're going to get a lot better with set 3. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.